The Kansas plains stretched endlessly under a bruised purple sky as Marcus gripped the steering wheel tighter. It was supposed to be an adventure. 3 friends road tripping from Chicago to Albuquerque for a music festival. But the laughter that once filled the car had grown quiet as storm clouds rolled in, swallowing the sun in a thick curtain of gray. GPS just glitched again, Jade said from the passenger seat, frowning at her phone. No signal. I told you we shouldn't have taken this shortcut, Eli muttered from the back seat, his voice low but edged with worry. As the rain began to fall in sheets, visibility dropped to nearly nothing. The windshield wipers thrashed like frantic arms, barely keeping up. The highway signs disappeared, swallowed by the fog and darkness. A flash of lightning revealed a crooked wooden sign up ahead, Midnight Pines INN vacancy. Marcus slowed the car, pulling off onto a winding, tree-lined road. The forest closed in tightly on either side. It shouldn't have been there. They hadn't seen any towns or side roads on the map. But they looked real enough. An old 2-story building with Gothic windows and a flickering neon sign that bled red light across the driveway. I don't care how creepy this place looks, Jade said. I'm not sleeping in the car. The parking lot was empty. No other cars. No lights in any windows. They stepped inside, dripping wet. The lobby was dim, lit only by a single amber lamp that cast long shadows across faded wallpaper. An ancient ceiling fan creaked above them. The desk clerk sat motionless behind the counter, thin and pale with sunken eyes that didn't seem to blink. Marcus cleared his throat. We need a room for the night. The man said nothing, just slid a tarnished brass key across the counter. Room 313. No ID? No payment? Jade asked, but the clerk didn't respond. His eyes followed them as they walked down the hall, but his head never moved. The hallway stretched longer than it looked from outside, with worn carpet and framed black and white photos of people with blurred faces. Room 313 was the last door, farthest from the lobby and colder than the rest of the hall. Marcus inserted the key, and the door creaked open to reveal a room that looked untouched for decades. Clean, yes, but too clean. Sanitized, like no one had ever truly stayed there. The air smelled like old books and mildew. The window overlooked nothing but trees, tall still, and somehow wrong. They tried the TV. Static. Tried the landline. Dead. Eli flopped onto the bed. This place is giving me the creeps, man. Jade stood staring at the mirror above the dresser. Doesn't it look warped? As they settled in, the rain turned into thunder. Heavy, booming cracks that seemed to shake the floor beneath them. That night, each of them dreamed the same impossible thing. A woman in a white dress, her face obscured by soaked black hair, trapped inside the mirror. She pounded on the glass, mouth open in a soundless scream, as blood began to seep from cracks in the reflection. They all woke at the exact same time. 3:13 a.m. The mirror was fogged, and a single wet handprint marked the inside of the glass. The moment they stepped into the lobby, it felt like time slowed. The ticking of a grandfather clock echoed across the wood-paneled walls, steady and unnerving. Everything inside the Midnight Pines Inn was still, too still. A fireplace flickered in the corner, though no one sat nearby. The air smelled faintly of mildew and old pine wood. Behind the front desk stood an unnaturally thin man, tall and pale, with eyes so deeply sunken they looked hollow. He didn't greet them, didn't ask questions. He simply slid an old-fashioned guest book toward Marcus. The paper was yellowed, the ink faded. Dozens of names filled the pages, all written in different handwriting, but the dates were wrong. Some were from the 1960s, others from decades even earlier. Marcus hesitated. We just need a room for the night, he said. The man didn't speak, just pointed at the back wall where a single rusted key hung beneath a plaque. Room 313. Eli leaned in. Weird number. Don't hotels skip the 13ths? Jade smirked. Unless they want to be spooky, on purpose. They took the key and walked down the narrow hallway. The floorboards creaked beneath their feet. The wallpaper peeled at the edges like it was slowly being swallowed by the walls. Dim bulbs buzzed above, casting sickly yellow light. At the very end of the hallway, past dozens of closed doors, was 313. The door opened with a long metallic groan. Inside, the room was cold, unnaturally so. The decor was old-fashioned but clean. 2 twin beds with faded floral quilts, a dusty armchair, a boxy television from the early 90s, and an oval mirror above the dresser that stretched nearly to the ceiling. The window had no view, just fog. Dense, motionless fog. Marcus tossed his bag on the bed. Creepy, but it'll do. Jade checked the bathroom. Toilet works. That's good enough for me. They each settled in, trying to ignore the oppressive stillness in the air. The TV showed only static, the phone had no dial tone, and their cell phones were still dead. No signal, no battery, no nothing. Then came the dreams. Each of them, in their separate beds, experienced the same nightmare. A woman in a tattered white dress standing behind the mirror, her face obscured by her matted hair. She banged on the glass from the other side, silently screaming. Her hands were bloody, her mouth open wide in agony, yet not a sound escaped. The glass began to crack beneath her fists. Jade jolted awake, heart pounding. Across the room, Marcus and Eli sat up too, both drenched in sweat. "You guys," Jade whispered. Did you see her?" Marcus nodded slowly. Eli's face was pale. "In the mirror." They turned as one toward the oval mirror. It reflected the room clearly, except for one thing. Their reflections weren't moving. All three stood still in the real world, but in the mirror, their doubles twitched, eyes wide and mouths whispering something they couldn't hear. And then the clock radio by the bed turned on by itself. It read 3:13 a.m. A woman's voice, low and distorted, whispered from the static. "Don't open the door again." The lights flickered. Then everything went black. The silence was suffocating. Marcus stumbled toward the door, but was locked from the inside. His hands shook as he fumbled with the handle, but it wouldn't budge. The room had become unervingly colder, as if the temperature had dropped at least 20 degrees in a matter of seconds. Jade and Eli were still frozen in their beds, staring at the darkened room. None of them spoke for a long while. The clock, still stuck at 3:13 a.m., ticked once more, a slow, deliberate sound that felt like it was mocking them. Every second stretched longer, like the passage of time itself had decided to torment them. Then the whisper came again, but this time it wasn't from the radio. It was in the air, faint but chilling. Jade's eyes darted around the room, but there was no one there. Her heart raced, her breath shallow. "Don't open the door again. She will take you." Eli shot upright, his voice cracking. What the hell was that? Who's saying that? "I don't know," Marcus said, voice barely above a whisper. "But I don't think we should stay here." Jade rushed to the window, only to find it covered in impenetrable fog. Not a single silhouette of the trees, not even the distant shape of the road. Just white, suffocating, and cold. She knocked on the glass, desperation rising in her chest, but no one answered. There was no sound outside. It felt like the world beyond the walls of room 313 had ceased to exist. The sound of footsteps echoed through the hallway outside, slow and deliberate. It was almost rhythmic, like someone pacing back and forth, but the steps didn't match any normal pattern. Too slow, too deliberate. Marcus's heart pounded. Someone's out there. He moved toward the door, his hand resting on the handle, but he didn't turn it. The sound of the footsteps grew louder, closer, as if the person was nearing their room. Jade backed away, her breath catching in her throat. "We need to leave now. Something's wrong. This place is wrong." Eli ran to the door. "We can't just sit here. We have to get out." He pulled the handle, but it still wouldn't budge. Marcus joined him, shoving against the door with all his strength. Nothing. The door wouldn't open. Suddenly, the steps stopped outside. Silence. Then, without warning, the door rattled violently. A pounding noise shook the room, as if someone, or something, was hammering from the other side. The force of the pounding sent the walls quaking, and the door splintered with every strike. But the door didn't break. Instead, the voice returned, louder now, more urgent. "She's coming. She's coming for you. Don't let her in." Jade screamed. "What the hell is going on? Who's out there?" A long pause, and then a whisper, cold and deliberate, came from the darkness. "Room 313 only exists until dawn. Once the clock strikes 6, it disappears. Forever." Suddenly, the clock radio turned on again. The time was still stuck at 3:13 a.m. But now, the whisper wasn't just in the air. It was in the mirror. They all turned, eyes wide, as the reflection in the mirror shifted. The woman in the white dress stood there again, but this time, her eyes were open. Her pupils were black voids, and blood dripped from her lips. Her hands, once pounding on the glass, were now pressed against it, as if she were pushing through, trying to escape the mirror. And then she spoke, her voice like 1,000 whispers, all overlapping each other.